Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares with the news from the global economy. On today's show, Poland's electoral results signal a shift to the right. And Namibia introduces a minimum wage for domestic workers. First, the headlines. China's yuan currency, which Washington has long believed to be manipulated, is no longer undervalued, the International Monetary Fund said on Tuesday. After trading around 6.82 to the dollar until May 2010, the yuan, under U.S. pressure, climbed to a high of 6.04 in January 2014. Despite rising 10% to the dollar on a trade-weighted, inflation-adjusted basis, a U.S. Treasury official still insisted the yuan remains too cheap. The U.S. urged China to make more progress on foreign exchange reforms, and the IMF was also critical, suggesting greater exchange rate flexibility. China is pursuing the yuan's inclusion in the currency basket, underpinning the IMF's SDR currency, a key subject for the fund when it reviews the SDR basket later this year. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff and her Mexican counterpart Enrique Peña Nieto signed agreements that may double their economic exchanges. Tuesday's accords strengthened bilateral cooperation in investment and broadened the scope of agricultural and industrial trade. The investment agreement, signed between Latin America's two largest economies, is the first of its kind Brazil has signed in the continent, Rousseff said. Brazil in recent years has become the largest destination for Mexican investment funds in Latin America.
In recent years, Brazil has become the second largest destination for Mexican investment in the world at more than $22 billion. Brazil is the main foreign investor in Mexico from Latin American countries.
Bolivia called on Chile to immediately resolve a strike as its customs services as it harms the landlocked country and prevents it from importing or exporting any goods. Foreign Minister David Choquehuanca said the week-long strike at Chile's customs agencies paralyzed international trade to and from Bolivia. Some 2,000 trucks loaded with Bolivian products are stuck waiting at the border with Chile. Choquehuanca said Chile should compensate Bolivia for economic losses and for violating the Treaty of 1904, guaranteeing Bolivian exports access through Chilean ports.
There were 4 strikes from the Chilean customs last year. Today, once again, we are dealing with the strike at Chilean customs which started on May 20th, 2015, paralyzing shipping and receiving of Bolivian cargo for 7 days straight.
A crippling strike over fuel that brought Nigeria to a near standstill was called off in the national interest, a union leader said on Tuesday. Nigeria's finance minister accused fuel importers of holding the country ransom after they shut depots, claiming they were owed $1 billion in subsidy payments. Nigeria is Africa's biggest crude producer, pumping out 2 million barrels per day, but is forced to import petroleum products for lack of functioning domestic refineries. The government pays importers the difference between the lower retail price for consumers and the actual market price in a system that is rife with fraud.
This whole importation of petrol in Nigeria is partly real and partly fraud. It is a fraud in the sense that the guys are importing refined products and smuggling part of it out, and are declaring products which they didn't even bring in.
U.S. cable company Charter Communications said it is acquiring rival Time Warner Cable, though regulatory obstacles could still sink the deal. The $56 billion takeover would greatly consolidate the industry if Charter is more successful at skirting the regulatory obstacles that sank Comcast's earlier bid. The Federal Communications Commission will look to see how American consumers would benefit if the deal were to be approved, the agency's chairman Tom Wheeler said. And some Time Warner Cable bondholders are also wary of the combined company's debt load, as Time Warner's debt balloons from $23 billion to nearly $65 billion. Andrzej Duda became Poland's new president on Sunday, helped by campaign promises of bigger tax breaks and reversal of a retirement age increase. But his election is also likely to stiffen opposition in Poland to adopting the euro and against new targets for cuts in carbon dioxide emissions.
With over 51% of the vote, Andrzej Duda won the Polish presidency during last weekend's elections. A big win for the young politician.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for this beautiful welcome.
Virtually unknown before the campaign, Duda, a hard right-winger, managed to beat the center-right incumbent President Bronislaw Komorowski. This despite the latter's success in escaping recession and hitting the highest growth rates in Europe. The reason may be that the good economic numbers hide a reality of inequality.
It's very good. There is finally some change.
I'm very happy. This is my president. With such a president, one wants to live and work in this country.
And Andrzej Duda has promised changes, including returning the retirement age to 65 from 67 and lowering taxes on the working class by increasing taxes on big chains and banks. The new president, seen as skeptical of the European Union, also wants to reduce the dependence of his country on Brussels and limit the share of Polish banks owned by foreigners.
Today, 2/3 of Polish banks are in the hands of foreign capital. The Polonization of banks is necessary. It should be a process of successive buyout of banks by big Polish financial institutions.
But for now, all these measures are only theoretical as the president has limited powers in Poland, and Duda only takes office in August, while parliamentary elections are set for autumn.
And I-24 News reporter Ayman Siksak takes us on a journey now to the Arabian Peninsula for a look at new developments in space and real estate in Financial Bazaar. Mr. Siksak.
Hi, Binyamin.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So, what's the story here in the Arabian Peninsula?
Well, big news from the United Arab Emirates. They just yesterday announced that they plan to open a new space research center, the first one in the Middle East, with big plans for the future. By 2021, they want to launch the first Arab robotic space exploration on Mars.
On Mars?
On Mars. It's a big deal. And Mars is a really huge deal now. Everyone is interested
Everybody's
in
talking
Mars.
about Mars.
Yes.
Is there life on Mars,
Is
right?
there life? Is there water?
But
is
we
there
asked
air?
this a long time ago, but I guess we're asking it now.
We're asking it now, and maybe the Arabs will give us the answer. I don't know.
Hey?
We'll have to wait and see. So a big project from the United Arab Emirates, $27.2 million
They
in
certainly
investment
have
so
the money
far.
to invest.
Certainly, and they plan to get more money. So they plan to really diversify the economy through the center, create more jobs, and partnerships with other countries around the world. Now, just earlier this year, they launched another space center that has already launched 2 Earth observation satellites over Dubai, and this was in cooperation with France. So they signed a memorandum of agreement together with the 2 countries. And this really brings in a new era of the United Arab Emirates cooperating with Europe to look into space. So big things for the future
Different
there.
dimension and a different, form of cooperation, I guess.
Yes, so France is heavily involved in this. Of course, France already has its own plans for space, but here, this is a very interesting cooperation, so we'll have to wait and see what the United Arab Emirates plans to do in space. A very big conference was held yesterday in Abu Dhabi, launching this plan with all the greats of the United Arab Emirates. Really a lot of media attention focusing on the United Arab Emirates right now, taking us to space.
Clearly a very serious trajectory here. Interesting to see how it develops. And what else do we have here in terms of Saudi Arabia, I believe?
Saudi Arabia, more good news today. We're focusing on good news and good things today.
Yes.
Saudi Arabia is still expecting a rise in real estate. They're saying that they're expecting global investments in real estate in Saudi Arabia to increase. Yes, global capital investments in Saudi Arabia to increase. They're saying that despite news around the world about the region being, let's say, not too good, and we know what they're talking about. The region itself is on fire, but
of course, Yemen is on fire, but
Yemen is on fire, so is Syria, and this is, of course, is taking a toll on Saudi Arabia as well. But as far as real estate goes, according to the official statements from the country, they're planning to increase their expecting an increase in real estate investments by 6.6% this year.
Really?
And this is already...
Is this related to the opening of the of investment in Saudi Arabia in general?
Absolutely. We've seen this, a lot of news exactly like this earlier this year. And what we're seeing now is a almost 50% increase in real estate in Saudi Arabia over the last 5 years. So despite the fact that we're seeing that the Middle East in general is not doing well, Saudi Arabia in real estate, and we just talked about Kuwait last week and the real estate investments in London. So Saudi Arabia within itself is already making big plans for this year already.
Okay, well, Ayman Siksak, thanks for telling us more about space and United Arab Emirates and, of course, real estate in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thanks for letting us know.
Thank you, Binyamin.
Wonderful. Now, domestic workers in Namibia are some of the worst paid people in the country. And while a new minimum wage is set to double their wages, lawmakers fear it will be unaffordable and ultimately aggravate unemployment.
For Namibian domestic worker Monica Hamutenya, home is a makeshift shack of corrugated iron and wood. Unlike the upmarket house she cleans twice a week, she has neither electricity nor plumbing. Now the government has introduced a minimum wage for this sector, doubling the monthly income and providing for overtime, leave and transport fees, a decision that's been widely welcomed.
I feel the new law will affect me positively because everyone will follow it. I believe it will be like when you sign up for temporary work on farms. You go to register at the labour office, and when the work is done on the farm, you come back to the labour office to get paid.
There are an estimated 46,000 domestic workers in Namibia, doing everything from gardening to childminding. But they are among the worst paid people in the southern African nation, earning on average less than $50 a month. The new wage should double that, though some lawmakers have opposed the move, saying it's unaffordable and will only aggravate unemployment. But the unions who fought for it say it should have been set even higher.
Actual government could have done better with the minimum wage. There should have been more research and consultation done before instituting or whatever this law, the new gazetted law. Some employees have now reduced the wages of the domestic workers.
Hamutenya does not work full-time and worries the increase is not enough to change her circumstances.
I only work twice a week. That's not enough hours for me to benefit from the new minimum wage.
Namibia is the latest southern African country to implement a minimum wage for domestic workers, following its neighbours South Africa, Zimbabwe and Botswana.
Now for a look at some offbeat items from the world press in Media Watch. And we're joined by Daniel Roth. How's it going?
How's it going with you?
Good, good, fantastic. I hear you have news about one of the most eligible bachelorettes
yes.
this age.
She is the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. Elizabeth Holmes. She is 31 years old, and she is a billionaire. And she's
not just an heiress. She's self-made, as you said.
Yes, she's self-made. So
right.
she dropped out of college. That's number
Stanford.
one. And this is, there's this movement in Silicon Valley to right. convince people to not waste money on college and sort of go into the startup scene. If you've got what it takes, you'll make it.
If you've got what it takes.
And to some extent, to a large extent, needs
right.
to be taken with a grain of salt. These people are rock stars, the people who really make it. They're about as few and far between as movie stars and rock stars, really. But Elizabeth Holmes is one of these rock stars. She invented a new way of dealing with blood samples, which about 80% of doctor recommendations use blood samples as a right. basis. And so by speeding it up, making it more efficient, she's basically revolutionized a large part of healthcare in the world, and has the potential to really spin out into many, many other ways. So it's no surprise that she's a billionaire, and everyone watching at home should probably stay in school, because we can't all invent new ways.
New ways that make the world a better place, by the way, I have to add to that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But it's a very inspiring story.
Indeed.
Less inspiring are some office news. There's, I've been noticing around the media people talking about office norms that are shifting in the 21st century in pretty terrible ways in a lot of cases. One of them is that you're seeing many less people get raises. It used to be that the average worker would get an annual or biannual raise raise in their salary as recognition of doing a good job.
Yes.
Nowadays, we're seeing that bonuses are becoming the big deal. That used to be reserved for the high-end managers, CEOs. Now you have to try to get a one-time bonus. You'll get an iWatch or a little bump in your paycheck, but it's much harder to get raises these days.
Have they been learning with Israeli employers?
Yes, it's certainly it's going around. We all, if you look around, it's indicative of a number of interesting trends in the world of office work.
But Daniel Roth, enough of this bad trend, seriously.
Yes.
That is the end of our Economy Magazine. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares. Thanks for joining us, and do watch us again tomorrow for more on the economy.